Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mio on MMA Podcast. Talking about UFC once again, but also PFL coming up this weekend. And it's a real shame PFL did not put together a better card for this PFL Battle of the Giants, show here, because the UFC with Pacheco versus Hernandez at the Apex in, Las Vegas, very Apex card worthy and nothing special. So it would have been an excellent time to actually get a lot of viewership. The problem, of course, is that you're going live on the same day as the UFC, October 19th, and you have this card which has, let's put it this way, if you look at the PFL betting odds here, and I'm looking at best fight odds here, only two fights are within the minus 200 to plus 200 kind of area, where we generally consider to be like competitive fights, interesting fights. Now, this is not foolproof, but at the same time, yeah, you're talking about a bunch of fights that are kind of one-sided with kind of an obvious winner with the exception of two fights. So, yes, it is a big deal that Francis Ngannou, lineal MMA heavyweight champion, back in the cage against Renan Ferreira in the main event. I'm picking Francis Ngannou to win by knockout. Ferreira is dangerous. He is 6'8". He is powerful. He is strong. It's heavyweight, so that there is always a chance of a knockout. Ngannou, generally speaking, is going to stand with people, so like that increases that chance. But realistically, there is no reason to pick against Francis Ngannou here. And that's kind of the problem with the post-UFC run of Ngannou, is that while it is a huge, huge deal for him to get paid, and I appreciate that. I think he absolutely won the whole thing. It's that in the PFL, there is not really a lot of interesting fights for him. There just isn't. Maybe there will become that because, of course, the PFL did guarantee a pretty ridiculous purse by MMA standards for anyone that fights Francis Ngannou. So maybe somebody comes over, someone leaves the UFC, someone comes in, or we pick up some kind of like Olympian or something to go in there and do the thing. A Gable Steveson, maybe. Not Gable himself, obviously, but something in that mold. So something could come of this, but obviously, like I've covered this in detail before, it's not a lot of interesting fights, not a lot of interesting analytics. So he's fighting Renan Ferreira, who is a worse striker than him on paper, is a worse athlete than him on paper, is probably a worse wrestler than him on paper, and is not some particularly great grappler. So there are all the avenues to victory for Francis Ngannou here. He can knock out Ferreira, obviously. He has that kind of unbelievable power. And Ferreira has been knocked out before. He got finished by Anti-Delia in 2022. So, good chin, don't get me wrong. Absolutely rock solid, but like not amazing. And as a result, you've got like a minus 300 something favorite, which, by the way, is a little bit low. Like if you're looking to bet on Francis Ngannou here, I wouldn't blame you. Which, of course, brings me to the usual betting spiel here. I am going to talk about betting. I am going to talk about betting odds. I'm going to even talk about what I'm betting on. But I really, really, really highly insist that you guys not bet massive amounts of money on May. It is too volatile. It is too unpredictable. And that is the way of it. It is not a path to financial freedom. So that's the main event. That's in the bag. Francis should win by knockout. He could wrestle him. He could, play the ground game with him. He could win a decision against him as well. These are all on the tables because he can fight for 5 rounds. I'm not entirely sure Ferreira can. And Ferreira will be, dangerous throughout because, again, 6'8", massively powerful heavyweight. There will be enough intrigue there. But like, analytically speaking, there's not much else to offer. Cris Cyborg versus Larissa Pacheco. This is Cyborg versus Pacheco for pretty much the best women's featherweight on the planet. I know that doesn't really matter much because it's featherweight and it's a really shallow gene pool up there. Not gene pool, but like talent pool. Hopefully it gets better with time, but like it will take a promotion doing the right things to promote it and actually get things going. And PFL got a little bit of interest in it with the Kayla Harrison thing, but that was at 155, which was a bit ridiculous. And hopefully they can do something with, I would hope, Larissa long term. I say Larissa because Cyborg is 39 years old. So we're talking about a decade of age gap. So like you're not building anything around Cyborg going forward. It's going to have to be Pacheco. And maybe that's why I'm picking Larissa Pacheco. Maybe it's just an age thing. Maybe it's just that like I haven't been super impressed with Cyborg in a while. Like okay, she stopped Kat Zingano in the first round, but Kat Zingano was very physically outmatched in that fight. But like decision with Arlene Blenko, 2022, stopped Sinead Kavanaugh, went to the 5th round with Leslie Smith, beat Blenko. I guess like part of the issue, of course, is that there's nothing really to look impressive against. Like, what are you going to do? But like at the same time, I think there's a visible slowing down of her. She's not as powerful, not as explosive, not as fast as she used to be. And as a result, you've got to just, kind of accept that father time, or mother time in this case, is catching up with Cyborg and bringing it down. And Pacheco seems to be basically at her prime. I mean, 1, she's 30 years old. 2, she's got that win over Kayla Harrison recently. She also dominated Olena Kolesnik, Amber Lee Brock, had a pretty comprehensive victory over both Julia Blood and Marina Moktikina. I always have a hard time with her name. They made it the distance, but like they're also, they're tough women, hard to finish. Moktikinen's never been finished, actually. Lost to Janae Harding, Liana Jojua, and Kayla Harrison, all by decision. How do you lose a decision to Liana Jojua? I really need to go back and watch that fight, probably, because it would probably be fascinating. Because I want to say it's Jojua's only ever decision win. And she has a style of fighting that shouldn't lead to like decision victories. Or, well, victories, honestly, at all. But like, I don't know. It's a bit weird that would be the case. And then Julia Budd, of course, is a very, very tough, durable, strong striker who has been finished in the past, obviously, by Cris Cyborg. But it's Cyborg, it's Rousey, it's Nunes. That's basically it. Actually, lost to Amanda Nunes in her second ever fight. Talk about a competition schedule that actually has like aged incredibly well. losing 2 of your first 4 fights to Amanda Nunes and Ronda Rousey. Anyways, yeah, I'm taking Pacheco. It's just an age thing. I think she can push the pace a little bit more. I think she has probably a little bit more of a technically sound game as well. A lot of Cyborg's success came from physical attributes and not necessarily the best technique. Don't get me wrong, good technician. I'm not saying she's a brute. I'm not saying she's untalented, untechnical. But a lot of what she got away with was that size advantage, the power advantage, the speed advantage, the physical gifts advantage. And those are all the things that are going downwards. Whereas I think Pacheco is actually pretty good at a game plan, pretty good at putting together some things. And honestly, her UFC run is kind of mind-blowing to me because it wasn't very good. Losing to Macy Chiasson on The Ultimate Fighter, still pretty weird. And then, of course, losing to Jermaine Duranamine and Jessica Andrade in the UFC during an 0-2 run. So, I don't know. It's kind of weird in that regard. You take away that UFC run, and she has been very, very good. Only other losses are to Kayla Harrison, twice. But she's also beaten Kayla Harrison, so there is that too. I'm going Pacheco. Again, just a younger fighter, going by decision. She's not unpowerful, but like she's not somebody who has to finish people to get the job done, obviously. Like she won against Harrison by decision. She won against Mokhtarian by decision. She won Moktikina. I'm going to struggle with that forever. Julia Budd by decision. So like, even like Sarah Coppin back in 2019 by decision. So I don't see her necessarily finishing this fight, but I just really see her being that little bit faster, that little bit stronger, that little bit, not stronger necessarily, but that little bit faster, a little bit more explosive, a little bit more dynamic, and a little bit less gun shy. I think some of it is that, like, since getting knocked out by Nunes, Cyborg does have a little bit of a fear for her own fallibility. Anyways, betting odds wise, -140 to -155 on Pacheco, +115 to +125 on Cyborg. Those are both bettable lines. Moving on down the card, Johnny Eblen versus Fabian Edwards. It's a rematch. What do you want me to say? Like it'll be probably fairly competitive to begin with because Eblen always kind of starts a little bit slow and then sort of gets his reads and gets going and starts putting things together. But he also may just crush Edwards because he's already beaten him and stopped him. So I don't know. Eblen by TKO is the the obvious pick. He's a bettable favorite, actually, minus 350 to minus 450. I'm a little surprised by that. Edwards is plus 300 down to about plus 260. So yeah, it's a bettable line, but like it's not a fight that's going to get all that excited. And then further on down the card, it's a lot of like just kind of showcase fights. Like we've got this fight between Hussein Katamagomedov. I hate really long Russian names. I don't know what it is. He's a Swiss fighter, but he's like a massive favorite, obviously from Dagestani stock. Wonder, do we have a place of birth for him? Is this not born in Switzerland? Okay, never mind. But like, yeah, clearly of the the Dagestani heritage and so on, and that's always going to get you a bump. But he's looked pretty damn impressive, and he's fighting Zafar Mohsen, who is not spectacular. Let's just be honest. Every time he's kind of come up against somebody of note, he has lost. So, that's kind of a setup fight. That's a, let me see here. Yeah, that's a minus 900 to minus 1300 bet line. Yeah, that's, I don't want to say it's a squash match, but like, it's not meant to be competitive. And then also you got other fights on here like Ibrahimov versus Nacho Campos. Campos is undefeated, but like he's a complete can crusher. And Ibrahim actually looks pretty good. So you'd obviously have to go with that one there. And the betting odds there are like, again, minus 4 figures on Ibrahimov against Campos. So like, again, two like fighters who are worth keeping an eye on. Very interesting. Pretty young, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Hussein is 25. Ibrahim is 20. So yeah, they're both very, very young, very interesting prospects, but they're up against people that they're supposed to beat, and they're supposed to be dominant fashion. That's still all there's to it. AJ McKee versus Paul Hughes. That's an interesting fight. I like Paul Hughes. He's a good, sharp boxer. He's got nice power in his hands. I really enjoy what he can do. Like, he's an exciting fighter. He's a fun fighter. His only losses to Jordan Vucenic, who is now in the UFC. So, I mean, that's a pretty big deal, obviously. And then, like, a couple of losses on the regional scene, including Richie Smullen. But, yeah, he's done really good work. He's very, 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 very solid. Came over in the Bellator deal. He's a good fighter, including wins over Fabiano Silva. And also a revenge fight against Jordan Vucenic, which he did win in 2022 after losing to him in 2020. So there's that. And also win over UFC fighter Morgan Charrier. So like he's very, very good. But he's facing AJ McKee, who is, I want to say, bigger than him. I haven't seen them side by side, really. Yeah. 3.5 inches of reach, 1 inch in height. Bigger guy, better athlete, better wrestler, better grappler on paper. Anyways, we'll see. And you do have to pick AJ McKee here, I think, realistically. What are the betting odds on that? Is that a bettable fight? It's a bettable fight because it's minus 163 to minus 190 on McKee and plus 120 to plus 150 on Hughes. So, like, that's going to be an interesting fight. That's a fun fight. Looking forward to it. Hoping it's a predominantly boxing match, but like there is also that chance that McKee is just like, you know what? I am actually just a way better wrestler than you, and I'm going to do bad things to you. And then there's Rafion Stotts on the card against Marcos Breno's not a bad fighter, but like he is a guy who has lost to Danny Sabatello. He has lost to Taylor Lapilus. So like whenever he's had that step up to elite competition, he has lost. I don't expect this to be any different. Stotts has got the wrestling advantage, the athleticism advantage, the size advantage, I'm pretty sure as well. Yeah. 5'7" to 5'5", 72.5 inch reach, which is huge for bantamweight and a 5'7" fighter. And I don't have a reach on Breno, but I imagine it's going to be a considerable advantage for Stotts in that regard. So Rafion Stotts will pick up that win as well. There's a couple other fights here, but again, just nothing really there. I would have preferred it if they just stacked this card. This was your chance. You have Francis Ngannou there. He's bringing the attention. He's bringing the interest. The UFC is not counter-programming with anything that you cannot beat. Why is this not a stronger card? So I give a thumbs down to the PFL and Don Davis on this one. I give a lot of thumbs down on Don Davis. He is really shooting himself in the foot because he keeps bringing up like, man, the UFC would never have our PFL guys in there. My dude, a lot of your best PFL guys are UFC rejects. I'm not saying that they should be UFC rejects, to be clear, but like, let's be real here. Let's just look at the roster here for a hot second. Let's enjoy this. Let's sit down here and look at your stars and realize that you have, with the loss of Kayla Harrison, you don't got much. Brendan Logain was on Contender Series, didn't get signed. Brett Johns, former UFC fighter. Bubba Jenkins, rejected by the UFC. Justin Gonzalez, I don't think it was. He was in Bellator. Kai Kamaka, lost in the UFC, didn't have a very good run. Further on down here, we're in heavyweight. We've got Blago Ivanov, cut from the UFC. We've got who else? Jordan Heiderman lost, I think, on Tough, actually. Marcelo Golm is ex-UFC. Thiago Santos is ex-UFC. Tim Johnson's ex-UFC. Keeping on rolling on down to 205, you've got Andrew Sanchez, ex-UFC. Antonio Carlos Jr., ex-UFC. You've got Impa Kasanganay, ex-UFC. You've got Phil Davis, ex-UFC. Although, has Phil Davis fought in there yet? Rob Wilkinson, ex-UFC. Tom Breeze, ex-UFC. And these are still like your top guys. Like, it's not like these guys are like filler and launching up like the next rung of like contenders or whatever. Don't get me wrong. A couple of these guys are losing, but like they're also winning. Like, they're winning tournaments for you. So I don't know. Focus on your own stuff. Focus on it. And then at like welterweight, you have Don Match, Leandro Starpoli. That's about it, actually. Surprisingly limited there. I do like their women's flyweight category. It does have a couple of ex-UFC fighters, obviously Shanna Young, Liz Carmouche. But Liz Carmouche is like really, really good. So, and even I think UFC fans are aware of that. And like, same with Tyler Santos. They're people who didn't fail out of the UFC. The UFC just got rid of them for reasons beyond performance in the cage. We'll just put it that way. So let's talk about the UFC here. Vegas 99, I think this is. Michelle Pereira versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Top of the card. Let's get into the main event. I have the two wolf dynamic here. There's a wolf in me that is the chaos wolf that wants Pereira to win because it would be fun. It would be ridiculous that he could just bonk his way through here, being like a complete wild man who his biggest thing lately is actually been not really being the same wild man. Don't get me wrong, it's still there. Like this, he still tried to do like the backflip pass on Ior Porteria, which is like very illegal. Not in concept, but like in practicality, because you're like almost as certainly going to stomp the opponent, or kick them, or use your feet on a grounded opponent, which doesn't work out well. But hey, he still does it, and but he's like, he's embraced the fact that like, hey, I should probably work behind a jab sometimes. I should set up some counters. I should not always be doing like spinning kicks and back flips and stuff. And I should like actually have some fundamental structure. But like the wild man is still in there, and it would be so fun to see him handle this. He's got all the potential in the world. He's got a super high physical ceiling, explosive, aggressive, dynamic, fast, strong, all of these things. And then there's the like logical, like Debbie Downer analytical wolf in me that is like, Anthony Hernandez probably can just like kind of pressure him and like, put a wrestling game on him and like, make this ugly, make this grindy, make this probably a submission just because it's 5 rounds long. And that's the wolf that's winning out at the end of the day. I have immense respect for Fluffy Hernandez. Dude is not an amazing athlete. He is blessed with cardio and durability, and he is a guy who will fight from behind against better athletes and still win. So I'm going with him. I'm not going to rule Pereira out. He is that kind of athlete. He is that kind of dynamic threat. He is that kind of chaotic finishing threat, and he's gonna have 5 rounds to try to get that done. So there you go. But I am going to pick Fluffy Hernandez by submission. He is the minus 133 to minus 145 favorite. Pacheco plus 108 to plus 122. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Pacheco is the underdog. I thought that there would be there would be some hot take betting on that one that would drive him up. So I'm a little disappointed about that because I was kind of hoping I could get Hernandez at underdog odds. Rob Font versus Kyler Phillips is just, it's a sad fight. There are very, very few fights I'm going to pick Rob Font to win that he's actually going to get here in the next bit. He's 1-4 in his last 5. He's 37 years old. He's struggling with durability. He's struggling with fading speed and fading power to a certain degree, explosiveness at the very least. And his defense is starting to break down both as a wrestler and as a boxer, which is a problem because he's becoming more and more hittable and more wrestlable as time goes on. Phillips is an amazing athlete. He's 29 years old. He is in his physical prime. He's well-rounded. He is messy. There's some rough edges to him that are just baked in there that the MMA lab is trying to get rid of, trying to smooth off, trying to make into a bit less of a thing. But he's a powerful striker. Font has a fading chin. Like I said, he's a good offensive wrestler. Font has been struggling with wrestling lately. And yeah, like I said, Font is also becoming quite hittable. We also have size parity because, let's be honest, the reach of Font has been a big part of his game for a long time. And he's the same height as Kyler Phillips with a ½ inch less of reach. So yeah, we did see Font beat up Giannis. We did see him get the win 18 months ago, 3 fights ago. So if Phillips goes out there and just kind of disregards Font, there's a chance. Like, there's still a dangerous Rob Font in there. But I've got to go with Phillips by decision, probably with a drop or two, but probably not a finish. Because ironically, the recovery of Font is still very, very much there. He's a guy who can get hurt, can get dropped, and still, like, make it to the end of a fight. So Phillips minus 400 to minus 460, and Font is plus 300 to plus 350. Sumo Jarji versus Charles Johnson is a bizarre fight. Johnson is coming off a win over Joshua Van. I know he's 33 and he's not a rising star, but you're putting him up against, after beating Joshua Van, against Sumo Jarji, a guy on a 2-fight losing streak, whose best win is Malcolm Gordon. Okay. Sumo Jarji is a perfectly fine boxer. He has decent grappling chops. He is an okay athlete, but there's just nothing about him that stands out as a wow factor, despite beating up Matt Schnell for most of their fight. But hey, it's Matt Schnell. Johnson is durable with excellent cardio, good game planning, good boxing, good wrestling. He's very, very hard to out-wrestle. Like, when it happens pretty badly. See the Rafael Estevan fight or even the Cody Durden fight. But, Mohamed Mokaev had a really, really hard time getting him down. Basically could not do it. And even though a lot of his losses do have, like, heavy wrestling components, it is hard to actually get it on him. And Sumo Jarji's probably just going to stand with him for the most part. That's my general assumption. And Johnson is surprisingly not that much bigger. Apparently Sumo Jarji actually has a 2-inch reach advantage. Go figure. But, he's going to exchange with him. He's going to, fight in the pocket with him. And that's historically not really been a way to beat Charles Johnson. So Charles Johnson by decision. I don't understand what this fight is supposed to do for Johnson. I get what it's supposed to do for Sumo Jarji if he wins, but I don't think he's going to win. And Johnson is a minus 225 to minus 240 favorite. Sumo Jarji plus 175 to plus 188. That is bettable. I'm not going to say much about Jake Hadley versus Cameron Smotherman. This was supposed to be Jake Hadley versus Brady Heastan. I was probably picking Heastan in that fight because Hadley is just a little bit too small for 135. He has a good game. Like, he has decent pop in his hands. He's a solid enough boxer. He's got decent wrestling. He is, quite a good grappler, actually. But, he's just kind of small for the class for his size, for his to work, really. Don't get me wrong, cutting less weight is, not a bad idea, but he's 5'7". And if you're not a tank at bantamweight, 5'7" is going to be a bit of a problem. He's just not that. Smotherman is a cam crusher, lost to Char Lampus Gregorio on the Dana White Contender Series. I have no idea why he was still on the UFC radar. His last win, I think, was over a guy with a losing record even. So Hadley by submission. Smotherman is bad. You could have done better. Also, why is this still listed on the main card? Kind of interested here. Is it listed on the main card on the UFC website? Because I'm going by the Tapology. I'm going by Tapology here. The UFC stats doesn't even have it. UFC Fight Center. Do you have this fight? Yeah, no, UFC Fight Center has this on the main card. Yeah, that's stupid. Hopefully that changes. that's all I've got. Betting odds wise, Hadley is a minus 375 to minus 520 favorite. I can't believe I'm saying this, but that's bettable. And Smotherman is plus 285 to plus 350. I'm not going to touch it, but that's bettable. Darren Elkins versus Daniel Pineda is 79 years of featherweight experience. Wow. Not really. They're a combined age of 79, though. 40-year-old Elkins versus 39-year-old Pena. I don't know. I don't think you really should trust either guy here. I would stay away from this as a betting fight. It is an even money fight, at both of them at minus 105 to minus 115. But I'm going to pick Elkins just because Elkins still is insanely durable, and Pineda still kind of starts to fall apart after about a round and a half. So I suspect Pineda will kick his butt for about a round and a half, showing off his superior athleticism, his superior speed, explosiveness, and so on, but that he'll probably get tired trying to wrestle against Elkins and kicking his butt, and Elkins will slowly start to take over and win a decision. That is my thought. I'm not going to be surprised either way. Elkins is at the point of his career where I'm expecting him to just kind of fall apart when he steps into the cage at any given time. And I wouldn't say that Pineda is terribly far behind on that. So there you go. Mathaus Nicolau versus Asu Almabayev. This should be actually way higher on the card. Almabayev is I don't want to say a rising star because he's like 30 years old. Like he is kind of what he is. Also, I have him listed at 6'4" here. That's wrong. That should be a 5'4". Anyways, I'm still actually not 100% sold on Almabayev. He's on a 3-fight winning streak in the UFC, but going to decision with Jose Johnson and CJ Vergara is it's a bit of a sour taste, honestly. But quality wrestling, decent boxing, good pop in his hands, gets the back, loves to choke people, and seems like in his personal mind, seems like everything's functioning. And for Mathaus Nicolau, I don't think it is. He's a powerful counter striker, powerful counter wrestler. He's hard to take down and often turns that into a wrestling exchange into his favor. And but he's notoriously low output, and he's been KO'd in each of his last 2 fights, including by Brandon Royval, who's not that powerful. So this could be just kind of like one of those weird things where you have a 31-year-old guy who is not very old in fight years either. He's got 25-ish fights, something like that. And he's just kind of on the downturn already. And I don't know. It doesn't feel great to pick against him here, but I'm going to pick Almabayev by decision. It's just kind of a vibes thing that Nicolau's lost to obviously losing to Alex Perez and losing to Brandon Royval is not a big deal. Royval has fought for a title. Perez has fought for a title. It wouldn't surprise me if either of them were to fight for a title again. Wouldn't surprise me if they don't, but it wouldn't surprise me if they do. And I don't know. It's just watching those fights back. I'm just Mathaus Nicolau just doesn't seem to have the same thing anymore. Something's missing. Something's not quite there. So that's where the Almabayev pick comes in. Almabayev is a minus 188 to minus 210 favorite. Nicolau plus 150 to plus 170. Brad Katona versus Jan Matsumoto. Big step up for Matsumoto. I mean, his best win is Dan Argueta, so this is a huge deal, but he is undefeated. You can only beat who's in front of you, and he's looked good doing it. Very good front headlock game. Seems to have a powerful punching game. Seems to have pretty reasonable wrestling. Very good athlete, and so on. It's a new thing for him because Katona's probably not going to do what Argueta did and try to wrestle him endlessly. Don't get me wrong. Katona can wrestle and has multiple takedown performances against the likes of Garrett Arnfield, Hunter Azure. The Hunter Azure one particularly impressive. Jay Cusinello as well. But I assume he's going to watch what Matsumoto's been doing with the front headlock and be no. I want to make this into my classic fight, the pace and boxing fight that I generally win. So that's the approach I assume he's going to have. And it's just going to be whether Matsumoto can apply his superior athleticism and power to Kitona. I'm going to say yes, but like it's a very, very nervous yes. So maybe I'm getting on the hype train at like the exact wrong time here. But I've got Matsumoto by decision, minus 218 and minus 250 on him, and plus 180 to plus 200 on Kitona. That's bettable. I might touch those underdog odds because again, it's one of those things where like I could easily see Matsumoto being a big like I don't want to say a star because MMA has very few of those, but like a long-standing member of the UFC's 135 division, long-standing guy who has a lot of success. But there's also just like very much a lack of testing there. And maybe, just maybe, someone with a good game plan who can provide multiple dimensions to it will cause him to just kind of fall down. And then we get to just like the crappy part of the card here. Jocelyn Edwards versus Tamiris Vidal. Vidal is ass. She is not good. She is explosive. She is creative, but there is no game there. There is no structure, no technical framework that she works from. It's just that, 135 and upper waistlands and being a good athlete is enough to get to the UFC. Edwards is a good athlete whose coaches have tried to make her into an outfighter with volume. She just has all the wrong instincts for her because she always ends up in the clinch. And she's strong. She's physically quite strong, but that's all she's got in the clinch. Like she's otherwise just really bad in the clinch. So I don't know. I can't really pick Vidal against anybody who's athletic because again, there's just no game to it. There's no game. She has to blow you out of the water like immediately. And I assume that's not going to happen here. So Edwards by decision. Edwards is minus 250 to minus 295. Vidal is plus 200 to plus 225. Jessica Pena apparently hasn't retired and is fighting Elise Reed. Reed's not very good, so I'd take Pena if I thought she still was game, and I don't. When was the last time Pena even won a fight? Kind of curious here. She armbarred Karolina Kowalkiewicz back in 2021 in a battle of the old timers. And prior to that, she had a random win over Lupi Godinez. It was a weird fight. Very bizarre fight. But like losses to Emily DeKobe, Tabitha Ricci, Danielle Taylor, Jessica Andrade. No shame in the Andrade one. And Jacek back then. Back when she was in title contention. But like, yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna pick Reed. She's she doesn't have the frame for what she tries to do. She's 5'3" with a 6'3" reach. She's got a good kicking game, but like the best part of her ability is that she has balance and dexterity for kicks, but she's not long enough to make that really a thing. And she's not a very good athlete, just in general. Been finished 4 times in the UFC. She's been pressured and crushed with grappling as well. It's just Pena's 41 years old and never had the greatest takedowns in her own right. She's kind of a counter grappler. So Reed by decision, but like, I don't know. This is just a stay away from it fight, really, from a betting standpoint. Reed is minus 175 to minus 186. Never betting on her at favorite odds. Pena plus 140 to plus 155. Elise Ardelaine versus Melissa Martinez. Speaking of people who've lost to Elise Reed, Melissa Martinez. The UFC seems to have remembered that they signed her back in 2022, and she hasn't fought since 2022 in the UFC. After they signed her brother in the Contender Series, trying to get the whole like siblings thing in the UFC. I'm not sure why she was absent. I couldn't really find anything. Didn't look that hard, to be honest. But the reason for that is I'm just not picking Ardelaine in like any fights at all. Ardelaine is bad. She's strong. That's all I've got to say about her. That's literally it. Probably hard to wrestle. That's literally it. Martinez is small for 115. She's more of an atom weight. Never has looked all that impressive against anyone particularly seasoned. She's got decent volume, though. She has a functional striking game. She has ideas, and like I would assume we'll just kind of out volume Ardeline to a decision. That's my guess, but I'm not looking forward to this one at all. Martinez by decision. She's a minus 120 to minus 136 favorite. Ardeline plus 100 to plus 108. I don't know why Ardeline is even here. This is not a division that need this. Like, don't get me wrong. A 135 version of Ardeline, I would understand. I would get because they're trying to build that division. I guess they're signing people for it finally. But this is 115. You don't need this kind of filler. So there you go. Robelis Despain versus Austin Lane is a battle of two glass cannons. Well, actually, I shouldn't say Despain is a glass cannon because he seems reasonably durable. Like, whereas Lane actually just like is like the pitcher of a glass cannon. It's just Despain's game kind of breaks down if he can't finish you immediately. Despain by TKO. Lane's got a glass jaw. If this fight goes beyond a round, it's gonna suck. If it stays to a round, it'll probably be fun. Despain by TKO. He's a minus 340 to minus 400 favorite. Latest plus 270 to plus 300. There you go. Those are the fights. It's not a very good. You know what? For what is a big weekend in combat sports, big weekend. It's not very good. By the way, weird booking notice. The UFC apparently has booked Umar Nurmagomedov against Yadong Song instead of giving Umar a title shot. That is that's unexpected. Are we getting O'Malley versus Merab 2? If so, please don't. Like, I'm not against the idea that rematch happens eventually, but like, I don't want it now. Anyways, check down below or wherever the description is for links to my social medias, my MMA Discord simulator, and also my video gaming stuff. If you happen to be a nerd like me and enjoy my whole vibe here, I will see you after the fights.